Zootopia 2 is out, and you've probably already seen a million bajillion different reviews, but not one like this one. Let's dive straight into this. First off, I'll say Zootopia 2 is very much just Zootopia 2. It's more of the same thing, but expanded. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it accomplishes this very well. Let's start with Julie and Nick's dynamic throughout the entire movie. It works well, they bounce off each other fairly decently. Throughout this movie, they explore their partnership as both being cops and what it means to them. And throughout the entire film, I'm just sat there and I was thinking to myself, they're supposed to be like soulmates. But I didn't understand why Disney doesn't want to do it, because it would be hard to explain to children how a fox and a bunny can be in a relationship. Totally understand that. Especially since they used to kill each other in the first film. But I will say, since the duo are now cops together, the cop criminal aspect of the relationship, of the dynamics and dialogue, is taking a back seat. That doesn't necessarily mean the dialogue is bad by any means, it's just slightly less interesting. At least to me. However, there is one part of the movie where something happens and I just can't help but notice Judy Hopps as a character being snowballed into a little bit of a bad character. It just seems so unlike her to do in this movie that I was like, that doesn't even make any sense. When I first saw it, I was like, huh? What do you mean? Because it seemed obvious to me as the viewer. But while the movie still has some moments in which I'm like, why would they say that? The jokes and the writing of the banter back and forth. It works, it still works. Let's move on to the villains of this movie. The villains work well. Surprisingly, they're villains from the start to the movie to the end of the movie. They're bad throughout the entire movie. This isn't some type of frozen twist villain baloney. It actually works well. And it pushes the narrative of the actual theme of the movie, so it coincides with that. However, I will say there is a twist villain in this movie. And when I first saw this character, I was like, yeah, they're definitely the bad guy. But then, throughout the movie, I was like, wait a minute, maybe they're just chilling. Maybe I was wrong. They seem cool. And then, boom! Random reveal! They're the villain! So, at one point, I was like, yes, I'm vindicated. I was right. But another time, I was like, damn, the writing was so simple. This is one of the type of movies I would be like, in hindsight, if someone sat me down and was like, do you want to watch Zootopia 2? I would say yes, 100%. Because the memory of that movie is amazing. I mean, the visuals of this movie, great. They stand out, the anthropomorphic animals, they work well on the big screen. However, once you try and dissect this movie piece by piece, you seem to really notice the analysis eye for mess-ups. Just small mess-ups here and there, writing-wise. Isn't necessarily huge, but, there's small hiccups throughout the film. Albeit seeing this movie from a rose-tinted glasses type of deal. There is a gripe I want to say about the movie. The side characters. Now, I will say that this isn't a spoiler, by the way. This is just me saying it, because they're not really relevant characters. The police force. Every single character from the police force is seemingly only there to move the story along through Nick and Judy. And I just don't like that. Sorry. I don't like characters that only exist to move the story along. And you could argue, well, that's what the snake's doing. Yeah, it is. But I like him. I like Gary the Snake. However, I will say, the way this movie was marketed, I thought he was going to be in the film for most of the time. But no. Most of the time it's just Nick and Judy. Gary the Snake was only in roughly the last 48 minutes of the movie. I want to say he has less than half an hour of screen time from the movie, but I don't want to make that bold claim. Honestly, it might be less though, if I'm being completely honest. Even though I wanted to see more of the side characters, I already knew Nick and Judy. I wanted more of different characters, but that's fine, I guess. But I guess the snake was demarketable because they just plastered him on every single poster imaginable. But I will say, this movie is a good Disney movie. It's been a while since they had one of these. I think the last time I went to see a Disney movie, it was just me streaming Encanto. And hang on, let me just double check this information. Jared Bush, Ivan Howard. It's the same team. The same team that made Encanto, that were behind the scenes, made this movie. It's the same team. No wonder. Keep them in production, Disney. They know what they're doing. But overall, would I say this movie is better than Zootopia 1? I would say so. If anything, it's on par with the same one. It works well. However, there's always a caveat. There's so many tiny hiccups and things that I just don't understand. What does the thought say, Joe? Not once, but twice in the movie. That shit came out 12 years ago, before Zootopia 1. And there's some moments, like I said earlier, that just don't fit the characters and kind of just like slowly crush what they were presented us as in the first film. But that happens more so with Judy than anyone else. Oh, and Shakira is the Dezella then. This time with a even better song, I might add. It's a bop, I'm not gonna lie. And, I'm not gonna be too much of a Nostradamus here, but I'm pretty sure there's gonna be many more Zootopia films in the future. I mean, they can basically do anything they want with any sequel, with any issue, with any animal group. With Zootopia 1 being mostly mammals, this one was mostly reptiles, but they didn't do nets, You could really explore that and, deep dive in the history of that. And it would be fairly easy because it would be based off of already known history. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Overall, with a few caveats here and there, I did enjoy the movie overall. I would give Zootopia 2 a 6 out of 10. Wait. Let me defend myself here. A 6 out of 10 isn't bad. Hell, a 5 is average. I remember getting a C in high school, and everyone would say, that's dog shit. But that's passing. That's middle of the road. But with glaring issues that I have to, acknowledge, it brings it down a bit. But if someone, invited me to see this movie again, I would. Just due to the animation. If you don't like my rating, hey, like Nit says in the movie, agree to disagree. But what are your thoughts about this movie? Did you like it? Was it sort of a letdown for you due to the marketing of it? Do you want to see more of the snake? Let me know in the comments. And let me know if you want to see more movie reviews. I'm just a guy who has opinions and I want to talk about it.